If you haven't watched a deep dive before, make sure you check the notes after the fact. If you're not watching live, of course, there will be time codes down there that let you know when the interesting stuff happened. This is tends to be kind of a long... Oh, I forgot to make the YouTube larger. Tends to be kind of a long thing, so check the notes for time codes to make it so you don't have to watch all the 2 hours if you don't want to. So yeah, well, I'll just hang out. I'm like starting right on time, but we'll wait just a little bit to get going here still. And I'll say hi to folks, and I need to actually make sure that I did everything. Yeah, it looks okay. Looks like I got everything. I think I have to pause my YouTube stream as well. All good, everyone? Hi, Minnesota Mentat. Hello, Dave. Hello, Beata. Hey, Johnny. Hey, David Buchanan. Mark Tomlin. Ooh, got off early just in time to catch the stream. Thanks, Mark. Hi, Keithy EE. Hi, Doctor. Hi, Gary Z. Love the factory. Hello. Doctor again. Hello, Mark Gambler. Hello, DCD. Sorry you're in lockdown. That sucks. Hello, Hugo. Hey, Johnny. Hi, Mr. Certainly. Hey, K-Match. Awesome. Hey, Jonathan Turner. I did get, I got my second dose of the Pfizer vaccine on Monday, which is exciting. So the clock is ticking until I'm officially fully vaccinated. For those of you who aren't there yet and may be a little hesitant, I would encourage you to do it. My experience after the second shot was that my arm was sore like the first one. I did not get a red spot like I did from the first one. And then on Tuesday, I was like pretty tired. I didn't sleep that well, but I think it was due to the shot as well. And then I was like, I felt like I had exercised, which the exercise I do doesn't really make me sore. So I had like a little bit of like a muscle soreness from it as well. But then I woke up on Wednesday and felt real good. So not too bad at all. Finally some sun and warm weather today. Yeah, it's a little deceiving though. I just opened the window because I was worried about it getting hot, and I'm getting this like a little bit of a chilly breeze. So it's not summertime yet where it's like super warm. Hi Bruce. I don't think I said hi to you yet. Hey Andrew Reed. Oh, interesting. Mark Gambler says, I did sign up for a study on mix matching doses. It will get me the second shot sooner. Yeah, I'm curious about that. Obviously, they haven't done a lot of studying of that yet. Mark says, the day after the second dose, I wanted to sleep all day. Highly recommend people take the day after off. Yeah, I didn't take it off. My partner was saying earlier she wasn't feeling spectacular this morning. She's like, today's the day I would work from home, but I'm already working from home, so what do I do? Doctor says, I basically felt dead like migraine plus bad cold after the second one for a couple days, but then felt fine. Hi, Le Samurai Pourpre. Slipped sick and slept for most of the 2 days after. Yeah, I think that's pretty common for folks to just feel a little sick. Bruce says in Canada they may be mixing up the vaccines because they can't be sure what they're going to get. Well, good luck. Ooh, I missed the restream folks. Let me check out the restream folks here. The folks in the Twitch chat, I should say. Mr. Certainly's there, and Natish1764 is there. Sorry, I missed it. The chat was underneath my OBS window. That's why I missed it to start. Now I can see you. All right, so let me do housekeeping and we'll get started here. I think I've got, Well, let me check my window. Yeah, my window's a little too tall. There we go. Yeah, the Twitch chat's not on the screen, but I do have it up on my... It's not on the video, but it is on my screen, so I'll see it now. It was just under my window. It's actually usually not that active. That's why I missed it. Oh, and you know what? Like, there. That's better. Okay, for real now. I'll stop messing with my windows. Pull up my notes. I always start writing my notes in the wrong doc. All right, hello everyone. My name is Scott. If you don't know, I go by Tan Newt online, and I'm paid by Adafruit. Hello, Dishipu. I'm paid by Adafruit to work on CircuitPython. So if you don't know what those two things are, Adafruit is an open source hardware and software company based out in New York City. They have a number of folks that work remotely though, and I'm one of them. So I live in Seattle. I do software engineering for them, so I'm more the software side than the hardware side. And I do CircuitPython. CircuitPython is a beginner-friendly version of Python designed for little inexpensive computers called microcontrollers. Let's see. Here's an example. This is a Feather, I had to read it, M0. And the larger black, those are called chips. That's the little computer there. This one runs at 48 megahertz, but you can get some that have more RAM or run faster as well. But they are very inexpensive. So they're like under $10 a people. So a chip. Under $10, maybe even under $1. So they're really affordable. They're a great way to get people started into computers. So today, this is a deep dive. It happens every week on Fridays at 2 p.m. Go for about 2 hours. At least 2 hours. And we just talk about whatever. So questions are welcome. It's normally this time 2 p.m. Pacific. We do shift it on Fridays if I'm doing something on the subsequent Friday, but I have no plans next week. So next week we'll be on Friday as well. If you want to chat with me and a lot of others outside of the stream, I would encourage everyone to join the Discord server as well by going to adafru.it/discord. And last up on the housekeeping is in the shadow here is Spook. He's one of the 2 kitties that we own. That's why there's 2 beds there. He is epileptic, so occasionally he has seizures, but he's been doing really, really well. So I wouldn't expect it to happen, but it has happened in the past. So just a heads up, if I'm streaming but not communicating with everyone, that's probably because I'm just making sure he's okay. But he's been doing really good. Since I started streaming, we've switched his meds, and the new meds have been working really well. So very happy with that. And once I'm fully vaccinated and my partner's fully vaccinated, we're going to go visit her family as well. So they'll get to spend some time at their vacation home with my parents here in Washington. Had a doggy day today, meeting some friends' dogs. Nice. Hey, Paul. Did I say hi to everyone? So, let's see here. I got a bit of an agenda. So last week, I think we were working on, or at least in the kind of past few weeks, Minnesota Mentat says heart and appreciate all that merging work. Thank you. Thank you. The merge is done. It's in. So give that a shot. Please help us find issues. And hopefully we can get to 7.0 real quickly. Nati says, I like non-active streamers. Yeah, I do kind of at the end, like if I'm getting in the zone on something, then I tend to communicate less. But at the start, we usually are answering questions and stuff. So the MicroPython merge is in. I have some stuff that I was supposed to do for MicroPython, but I haven't gotten to that yet. I need to get this BLE workflow stuff done. Bruce says Sublime Text 4 is out. I saw that I could update it, but I didn't update yet. I needed to... what was I thinking? Oh, I didn't want to update right before the stream. Kmatch has a hug report here from Mark saying, thanks for taking on the ESP32-S2 SPI display speed updates. Doing some house bathroom demolition this weekend, but can probably find some time to test in the evenings. So Kmatch and Mark have been doing a great job. We had some issues with the Funhouse where people were seeing artifacts on the screen. And I think they kind of figured out that the issue is that you have to send commands slower than you can send the data. And display IO currently doesn't distinguish to the two. So I'm excited to do that. Before we get to this question from George, I would just wanted to say that the status LED changes were merged in today as well. So that's cool. Please test that as well. I think Neradoc already found an issue on a couple boards. So thank you to Neradoc in advance for getting a PR out. I think I saw a PR go by for fixing those boards as well. I appreciate it. Okay, George says, would you consider yourself an IoT/embedded systems engineer? I would consider myself an embedded systems engineer. I don't think I would say IoT. I think IoT it's kind of unclear what side of IoT you're on. There's a lot of work with IoT is around security. And there's a whole world of like, what do you do when you collect the data that I don't really deal with. So I would consider myself more on the embedded side than the networking side. And I kind of like, if people have seen, like I don't really enjoy working on networking. So yeah. Bruce says, I lost all my keyboard memory using VS Code now for years. Oh, well, I did like Sublime Text. Yeah, I'll have to take that. Oh, maybe Neradoc didn't do that. PR for what now? I thought you had a PR for fixing the NeoPixel power on a couple boards. But maybe I was wrong. Ooh, Minnesota Mentat says, what was the issue last week, a bad LED? Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, other folks tested it for me, and the reason I wasn't getting red was just because it was broken. Doctor asks, oh, and actually I mentioned it to Lady Ada, and Lady Ada said, yeah, like red breaking is pretty common as well. Doctor asks, what's Sublime Text? Sublime Text is an editor. It's a text editor usually used for code. Johnny says, IoT is cloud plus embedded. I have built a commercial IoT cloud. Nice. They were not properly configured. Yeah, I figured that. Thank you. I haven't updated Sublime Text yet, but I will. DCD says, speaking of networking, the show and tell Bluetooth file I/O was impressive. Yes, we're going to talk about that. Jonathan Turner says, is there a way to import live folder modules from the REPL? From the REPL on the device, not usually. Well, what do you mean by import? If you're in the REPL and you have a file in lib, you can just say import the file name. But if you mean like downloading the modules like from somewhere else onto the drive, you can't do that from the REPL. So Jonathan, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking. Doctor says, how come red breaking is common? Do we know? I think it's somebody mentioned it last week about the different forward voltages of the different colors, I think. Mark says, I'm about to implement a TCP stack in Rust. I'm terrible at TCP, so this is going to be an adventure. You should check, see if somebody has done that already. I wouldn't be surprised if they have. Already. The Rust people love Rust. George says, thanks for the response. I'm working on a BLE medical device and would like to reach out to you about some roadblocks that I've encountered. If you want to get help with anything, I would suggest go on the Discord server is a great way. There's a lot of experienced people there. So that's the URL adafru.it/discord. Or you can post on the Adafruit support forums and get some help there too. But if you need a contractor, I'm technically a contractor, but I'm also technically like I'm all booked up, so I can't do a lot of help directly. David G asks, could there be an editor in the REPL to be able to modify a Python file from the console? I think so. I was thinking about this a little bit, and I know K-Match has thought about this too. This is something that I've thought about in terms of the like run CircuitPy on a Raspberry Pi. And I think the answer, I think this, yeah, full-time Adafruit contractor, yes. I think that what am I thinking? Editing on the device itself. The oldest PR we have open is setting what file to run next, and I think that's kind of the key piece that you would need to be able to like swap between running editor code and user code and back and forth. I think that's one way to do it. So yeah, it's exciting. All right, we're cruising. So I just wanted to do a quick detour away from CircuitPython before we get into the weeds. Oh, he moved to the sun. Can you see him still? I must be doing something wrong. I seem to only be able to get core modules, otherwise it raises an import error. Yeah, so make sure that what I would do is hop on the Discord, take a screenshot of the layout of your files, because the layout of the files actually matters. Yeah, so I would hop in the Discord and folks can help you figure that out. It might be like the file path is a little weird, that sort of thing. Ava Mander says, have missed a few streams. Is there an Adafruit BLE file system protocol out there by now? Or have you solved the issue of managing BLE device storage? Yeah, let's just skip to this. I wanted to talk about my fiber stuff too. But actually, it's going to be really quick if I talk about this fiber stuff. So let me just show you kind of where, I just wanted to shout out this really cool project I found this week. Which is, oh, it's just a little bit too tall. So briefly, I've been working on this map for fiber availability in the US because we're going to be spending a lot of money on it. So this is the latest version. You can go to fiber-deserts.net and you can hover over it. And what I'm doing now is I'm trying to work on changing the hosting. This is all GitHub pages hosted right now. And you can see that you can hover. These are census blocks, which is the unit that the FCC manages communications data on. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to scale this up to the US. And Hugo, thank you for the link there. We'll get to BLE in just a little bit, but I wanted to just say a quick shout out to this project. I've been working on it a lot. I'm very excited about it. But I found this project called Dataset that's not spelled quite like you would think. But it's very cool. I would suggest people look at it if you've ever kind of been in this, like, I want to host data sort of mentality, because it looks really, really neat. So what it does is it statically hosts a database by having it just be a SQLite file. So SQLite is a SQL database, but it ends up just being a file on your file system. And so what it does is it takes that like single SQLite data file and like packages it together with a bunch of HTML and JavaScript, and then kind of statically hosts it, which is really neat. So that's been really helpful, and it can do it. There's like a publish command that just pushes it straight up to the Google Cloud stuff. So this is really neat. I could do a super quick demo because it is really quick. So here's my, working directory, and let's see what I've got a number of databases here. So I have this like form 477 mobile DB. So I can just do dataset form mobile 7, and then I set the time limit higher, and I just run it, and it gives me this web page. So this is kind of like all out of the box. So it shows me like here's the database, and here's the tables in the database. And if I click this, it shows me like all the rows of the database. And I can also say like, oh, I just want like if the state is Washington, and then hit apply, and it'll give me, it's a little slow, but it'll get it, there's no index on the state column. That's why it's a little slow. So this is giving me all of the rows for Washington. So DBA is like who it is. So like AT&T or Sprint or T-Mobile. And what these numbers are the different cell technologies. So like LTE would be one of them. And it tells you the percent coverage that carrier provides with that technology for a given block. So yeah, it's really neat. This is kind of my plan moving forwards for the fiber desert stuff. So I just thought people should know about this cool project. And that's kind of where I'm going with that. Once I'm trying to like process more like census block data for all of the states rather than just Washington. And hopefully ending up with something similar to the original fiber deserts thing. Okay, that's my quick detour. Open source, yes. Dave says, "Is it open source?" Yeah, dataset is done by one of the early devs on Django, so it's all Python under the hood, which is really cool. So it looks really neat, and when it pushes to the cloud, it uses Google Cloud Run, which is Google Cloud Run is a VM instance, but the instance only gets spun up when people access it. So like for me, where it's like, I'm going to do this project, but maybe no one will ever visit it. It's really nice because it means that like if nobody's visiting it, then it doesn't cost me any money, which is really neat. All right, cool. I just thought I'd shout that out. It looks like a really nice project. And you're welcome, Gareth. Gareth says, nice looking tool. Thanks for highlighting it. Yeah, I've been pretty excited about it. It actually, I need to try getting changes accepted upstream. I haven't tried to do that yet, but okay, let's get back to CircuitPython. So it costs you the most money between 2 and 4 p.m. on Fridays. Well, it's not running on that yet. It's running the current page is just on GitHub pages. Yeah, we'll see. I do need to add support because Dataset can host MB tiles, like map tiles, but it only supports PNG ones right now. And I've got vectors, so I'm going to have to fix that a bit. Okay, let's get back to Evander's question. So Evander said, have missed a few streams. Is there an Adafruit BLE file system protocol out there by now? Or how have you solved the issue of managing BLE device storage? Yes, well, I have a protocol. I think it's kind of good enough for a V1. If you want to see what it is, you can go to this URL. It's Adafruit, github.com/Adafruit_CircuitPython_BLE_file_transfer. And there's a big note stock here, and I'll just leave this open because it might be really helpful. So there's a list of commands, and it tells you exactly like what the protocol is for reading a file. And we're hopefully going to get to this today. Keith E. says, it's extra cool to see this since my brother is an aide for a legislature and is helping with a bill associated to ISP speeds. So thanks for sharing. You're welcome. That's kind of the goal. The goal of the fiber deserts thing is to really like highlight areas that need fiber access and highlight the money that we're already giving to areas potentially for not even fiber coverage that we were, in my opinion, wasting in other technologies. DCD is on top of things today. Okay, so update on the BLE stuff. So we talked with Antonio. We've been working with Antonio. He's a contractor that we work with for iOS and Android development. So there's 2 videos I wanted to show. Here's the first one. These are both from iOS, and I'm going to confuse you a little bit later because I have an Android plugged in. We'll see if we can get that going. So let me just play this video here. It's only like a minute or 20 seconds long. So this is just a test app that that Antonio made to do the file transfer stuff. So you can connect, and then it just kind of has pre-canned like contents for different things. So reading files from CircuitPython over BLE, writing them back, clearing, and then reading them back as well. So that's all it is. It's super basic right now, but it's like just testing like the underworkings of doing the transfer protocol. And it is talking to a CircuitPython device, but CircuitPython is running the prototype that's in that repo that I pointed out. It's not running like native CircuitPython, which is actually what I started working on yesterday. Because this is really exciting, and it'll feel so good when the dots are connected. So there's one, and then I thought I'd just show this other one as well. In case you haven't seen it, let me turn the desktop audio on.
Okay, Lady Ada, what is this?
Hey, I'm testing out our new build of Glider, which is an application we're going to use to be able to send data from an iOS or Android device to a CircuitPython board that has Bluetooth Low Energy support. And because CircuitPython is interpreted, it means that we could have this code here, this text area could have code in it, and then we write the file here, and it gets transferred almost instantly over to the application. So our idea is that you'd be able to write code on your phone, your mobile device, and then transmit it over to CircuitPython board to be interpreted immediately. So you can code without even needing a computer. You can code with any mobile like phone or tablet that has BLE support. So
okay, clear that text. Let's see it live.
Clear it. Okay, and let's read the file back. There you go. So now it's reading the data from. So writing and reading. We're going to have directory management and deleting files next.
Oh. Yeah, so that's the demo that Phil and Lamore did. And so I think the plan is to have 2. My goal that I'm pushing us to have is 2 apps. I believe there is a new Glider repo. I think I got an email saying that there was. The archived one is my version of Glider. Yeah, so there's glider-4.-iOS, and Antonio-OpenRoad is Antonio's GitHub handle. At least for it. OpenRoad is the name of his consulting company, I think. So my goal is for us to have 2 apps, since I'm not paying for it or whatever. But I think it's really important for us to separate kind of what we're doing. Like, I think Glider should be here's an app that just pushes and pulls files over BLE. And that's really useful for a lot of projects, right? Like, that's not just, it won't be CircuitPython specific. It's just about like, I want to get this file over or want to read the files off. And then what I want to do is, and then we'll have a second app, which I think we'll use the PyLeap name for, which is like file management, but specifically for CircuitPython. So we could do all the bundle stuff. We can do the upgrade stuff. We can do like code editing all in that app as well. Mark says, right now it's running as a prototype as a CP script on the chip. Gotta say that's one of the really remarkable things about CircuitPython. You can do some really complex stuff in it before it's native in C land. Yeah, totally. The one caveat is that the prototype is not actually writing to the file system. So like transfer speeds might be a little bit of a misrepresentation. The contents of the files are just stored in like a dictionary. But it's really been handy. Like I got Antonio, like we have prototype code for both sides, and he said that like as he was doing the iOS stuff, it was really handy to take a look at like the client Python code that I had already written as well. And I'm going to be using that as a reference in the C side of things too. Okay, so what else was I going to cover? So what I was working on is we actually in CircuitPython, so this is CircuitPython as it is now. Let me close this. So this is a file that's been in CircuitPython for a while. It's CircuitPython supervisor shared Bluetooth. And let's just look at the history of this file. I was actually working on it in October of 2019. Mark says, on the RP2040 QSPI, how fast do you think those writes will be? Well, RP2040 does not have Bluetooth, so this will not be on our RP2040. But generally, the bottleneck for writing to flash is erase time. It's not actually the write time; it's the erase. So that's what it is kind of usually the bottleneck. Evander says, by the way, the reason I asked this is because the Pine Time and its firmware efforts have a similar problem. There's a need to easily update resources on external storage. Having more than a few implementations and a more common protocol out there will be quite great. Yes, please let them know, and I'd be happy to chat with them. This is exactly kind of why I want us to have an app that's agnostic, exactly for this reason. Like, there's other people that will use it. Like, there's a BLE, like the Bluetooth people have an object transfer service that uses L2 caps as well. But one thing I wanted to do with this transfer service instead was to make it really simple. So we don't use L2 cap. It means it's going to be slower than like the optimum speed, but it's a lot simpler to implement. So I would love to see somebody else take a crack at it and get some feedback on it. But there would be nothing like we're not going to make our app not interact with with like somebody else's device that says that they have this service. So that would be perfect for it. That would be really cool. And in fact, I have a Pine Time in my thing. So I've wanted to get CircuitPython on the Pine Time as well. It unlocks a number of devices for CircuitPython that we currently can't access. Love the factory pointed out this would be nifty for replacing animated GIFs. Yeah, exactly. David says, let's do a new standard XKCD reference needed. Yeah, see, I am definitely in the not invented here camp. I am totally guilty of making new standards, but I also feel like a lot of times they're for a reason. And I don't think that XKCD necessarily captures that, right? Like, the reason that I want to have a different file transfer something is like it needs to be simple, and so yeah, I looked at the other one and decided it wasn't simple enough. Yeah, Hugo says, wasn't there another file transfer over BLE that was out there? I think David shared it on Twitter. There was the Pete Warden who does the TinyML stuff had just posted an Arduino BLE file transfer thing for using web Bluetooth over. And I asked them for feedback as well to unify it. And they basically said, like, yours looks more thought out. We'll just switch to that in the long run. So, yes, that is Pine 64's Pine Time is what we're talking about. Yeah, it's a watch from Pine 64. Mark says, in a feather stack, could a Bluetooth feather wing on the RP2040 feather and get access to this implementation? Would that work? It is not a priority for me to make it work with an external thing. I've pushed really hard. If you want Bluetooth, the RP2040 is not the right pick. I'm sorry. The RP2040 is great, but it's not great for connectivity. Like, yeah, there are very few things I think where you actually need the RP2040 and Bluetooth at the same time. I'm a little not the most yeah, sorry if I'm coming off a little bit aggressive about it. I've heard this argument over and over from someone, and I keep telling them the RP2040 is not the right chip. It is not the right chip for what you're wanting to do. And they keep saying, but I want it to work that way. And I'm like, you don't need it to. You don't need the RP2040 for what you're trying to do. You could also run CircuitPython on a LIDAR Lite v4 with this. Interesting. And I haven't looked at the LIDAR Lite v4. What chip is on there? Bluetooth 2040 will be a beast. I mean, the thing that I'm more interested in is, like, if you want a beast, like the NRF 5340 is their newer chip, right? And it's a dual core. ARM Cortex M33 with 1 mega flash, half of meg of RAM. Still 64 megahertz, but... And don't have PIO, but, like, if I'm going to bring it to a new chip, this is the chip that I'm going to use. Like... Or the chip that's on the... Actually, I take that back. The chip on the microbit is the... microbit V2 is the NRF52833. So... Awesome. Just got a text from a friend. The RP2040 isn't the hammer to all these staples I'm trying to use? Not always. Not always. Ah... The LIDAR Lite V4 is an NRF52 and an FPGA. Interesting. Doctor says, I say, RP2040 isn't the chip to use if you want to use Bluetooth, and then Arduino interjects saying, allow me to introduce myself. There was an NRF with a 9XX, but the price was high. Does that ring a bell? Yes, that's a cellular chip, I think, is the 9 series. And they are expensive, yeah. I do have an Arduino Portenta H7 that's crazy for when I need a lot of horsepower and BLE and Ethernet and a bunch of other things. I suspect I'd probably get to it if I wanted a Raspberry Pi. Like, BLE on the Raspberry Pi would be really cool. Because imagine, like, we get all this BLE workflow stuff going, and then you have your Raspberry Pi sitting next to your TV, and then you're on your phone programming from your phone what's showing up on the TV. Like, that would be really cool. And that's a reason that I think I would want BLE externally with that. All right. Just so expensive. $100 for the H7. Yeah, like, if you can buy a Raspberry Pi for $35, it's like, as long as you're okay plugging it in. Isaiah asks, ever use the Blue NRG One by ST? I have not. I haven't. Oh, it's only got 24K of static RAM. That is not a lot. CircuitPython won't be pleasant to use without, like, 32K is a minimum, and if you're running a BLE stack, like, 24 is very, very tiny. Not gonna have a great time. Xenia says, I'd be down with using an RP2040 with a BLE coprocessor. Doctor says Pi 0W for $5 gives you a lot of power and Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. I don't really count the Pi Zeros because they're not actually $5. If you ever try to buy more than one, it's like $15, which is still great. Like, but yeah. Eric says the Blue Energy appears to be an old product that's being replaced by the STM32WB series. Yeah, we're doing the NRF first. Gotta start somewhere. And that unlocks a lot of products that we already have. Oh, sorry about that. Xenia. Now I see it. Thank you for correcting me. Maybe many people were introduced to MCUs because of the RP2040. It's a new world for them. They don't know what else exists. Yeah, I think the Pi Zero Ws are $10. The ones without Wi-Fi are $5. Okay, let's get let's dive into what we're doing. So this file here, October 2019, I started this project when we were doing Bluetooth stuff, and this is when BLE ADT came out. And then in February 2020, right before the pandemic hit in the US here at least, we were talking about giving Bluetooth devices to everyone at PyCon. So it's about like 3,000 people or something in the like bag that you get at the conference. And we kind of realized like, oh, this is a bad idea. This is a bad idea because at the time when we had first implemented it, we didn't have a way to like make sure that you were the one connecting to your device. And that's a problem. Like to do it properly, you need to make sure that like there's some difficulty kind of swooping in and taking over a device for someone. Like it's not critical. Like please don't expect your code to be safe and secure. But at the same time, like we don't want like casually malicious people to be able to disrupt your experience, right? So like what I'm imagining is like you're at a conference. And actually, I was at a conference that had this problem. So the Open Hardware Summit one year had these e-ink badges, and they had Wi-Fi ESPs on them, and they had passwords, but it turned out the password was the same for all of them, and so there was a few people that realized this and kind of like trolled a few other people. Like it wasn't super bad, but like it needs to be good enough that like there needs to be a bit of a bar to prevent people who are like, I'm gonna just mess with somebody else. I also imagine like you're in a classroom full of kids and like you just don't want like the person sitting across the room from you to kind of swoop in and do it. So what you'll if you try the new version of the Glider app, what you'll see is that you actually have it only pairs if you're real close. But I don't know if the device enforces that. I know the device doesn't enforce that. So that's something we're going to have to do as well. Is that the pairing request will only be accepted if you're like real close, if the RSSI is really high. Xenia was introduced with the RP2040. There's a wider world than the RP2040. That's all I'm saying. The RP2040 is great for a lot of things. It's just not good for it's not good for connectivity. Wonder why the apps around CircuitPython seem to always be native code and not React Native or Kiwi. Well, the first version of Glider I did using React Native, but it's just a matter of like the tools that people know. So like Antonio is a native iOS and Android developer, and then like Trevor is native iOS. Like it's just a matter of what people know. Okay, so the gist was that kind of over the holidays of 2019, 2020, like we had this code, and then we turned it off, and there's like a little bit of stuff that changed, but not much. So what happened is I went to dust it off and get it enabled and running again, and I found some stuff that was no good. And I'm actually to the point where the first thing that you have to do is you have to advertise. You have to say like, hey, I'm here, like connect to me. And the code, like I was looking on my phone using NRF Connect, and I wasn't able to see the advertisements. So I just looked at it right before the stream. I found what I think is the issue. So I actually wanted to test that as the first thing I was going to do. So I actually have an Android phone. Ooh, and it's plugged in. I have a Pixel. I forget which number of Pixel it is. But I thought I'd use this for NRF Connect because I think I should be able to get the screen mirroring. It was having problems earlier. It looks like it's okay. So the first thing, it's finishing the system update. So let me just wait a little bit. Why? It says it's telling me checking for new voicemails, and it doesn't. There's no SIM card in this. Okay, USB debugging is on. So let's just see. So don't get your hopes up. We have not started an Android version of Glider at all. It is something that Antonio can do. Ah. Lady Ada's great search this week or last, it blends. It's good to see you look through microcontrollers. You realize just how many there are. I haven't seen that yet. I spend a lot of time in the microcontroller section of DigiKey, so I'd be curious to watch it. Any Android folks know what the incantation is? ADB screen mirroring. I didn't actually get a chance to... I don't care to do it wirelessly. Let's see. Let's just see if ADB devices works. It should be plugged in. Yeah, it is. Okay. Over Wi-Fi. Screen record. Will that work? Huh? Nothing. Is that right? Do I need to connect to it? ADB shell. What's this do? You need to tap on something in the advanced sections about 1 billion times. It does say that it's already enabled. Like the debug stuff is enabled, which I probably did ages ago when I used this last. I think it's... Let's figure this out. Let's see what Oculus says. A to B devices. While true, do screen record, time limit. That's weird. I could do it with a camera. USB tethering is on. That's so weird that it has to do with through screen record. Let's just try this. Let's see if they're... Oh. I do have VLC. You know, there is NRF Connect for Linux too, isn't there? Nothing. Wait, but this reminds me. Can I just do it? NRF Connect. Does this work? Oh, you know what? I think I might need... I need the dongle. Yeah, this will be the better way. I want it so you can see if the advertisement shows up. Where did I put that? I might have to run in the other room. Yeah, I think I need to grab. I'll show you what I'll grab after I grab it. All right, I'll be right back. Let me go get the... I know what I need. So here's what I've got. Got my NRF and ESP box. And what I need is this. That's what I'm looking for. It's like the NRF dongle that it can load software onto. So now I can just unload this, plug this in. I don't know if I want to, oh, that I don't care. Open. Select device. All right, this looks good. Yes. I spent most of this week in the BLE app. NRF Connect is great. If you're doing any sort of BLE stuff, it's the place to start. All right, so we found our dongle. So let's see. Let's see if I can't get this both places. Can I close this? Yes, I can. Great. So what I've got here is I've got J-Link. I'm J-linked to, you can't see it, it's not going to be exciting, but I have a feather blue NRF52-840 on my desk that I'm J-linked to. And I'm in GDB, so I'm going to reload. And then I'm going to start the scan. Oh, and of course the scan shows up on the other side of the screen. So here's all the stuff in my house. And I'm going to continue. And maybe we'll see. Nope. Didn't work. Let me see. I'm just going to check with my phone too. So this is the first step, is trying to see if it, no, my phone doesn't find it either. We should see like a device that has the name Circ, C-I-R-C, I think. But it's not working. So we're gonna have to debug that. Yippee. I don't see. It should have a name. Okay. Let's see where it is. Oh. So we're just in code.py. David says, will this BLE code work on the ESP32? In the long run, I think that would be neat. In the short term, we're just going to do NRF at the start. Control A usually jumps to the beginning of the line. Does Fish not have that? It probably does. I just don't know it. I'm actually quite bad with the... I'm quite bad with the keyboard shortcuts, so I'll try to remember that Control A to get to the start of the line. If you don't hook up your project to the NRF52 dev kit you're using as a programmer and you flash the onboard NRF, you'll become endlessly confused. I feel that, yeah, knowing which thing that you're doing. DCD says think Emacs. I've never gotten my head around Emacs, and yeah. Control A is select all in my book too. Okay, so I do have a variable here that says advertising, I think. True. So it did get to the point where it should have turned it on. which is even worse. Oh, great. So here I am in bluetooth.c. This is the shared Bluetooth file I was showing earlier, but this is the new version of it. So this is what happens if it's the BLE file service is off. We just do empty stuff. Control arrow works. So I've changed it to just have the version and transfer characteristics. I've switched to the new UUID for the file stuff. And I'm doing the creator ID. One thing I was a little concerned about is that this is like 31 bytes, which is kind of all that you're allowed to. Let me just comment. Let me make it shorter. We can comment this bit out. Let's just see if that works. This is just TX power. We don't have to have that. And then here you can see here's where I say advertising true. And there's this BLE adapter start advertising. Let's take a look at whether this returns a status. Generally, if it's a private API like that, it will. Yeah, so it returns a number. So let's capture that number. So this is me trying to debug. So I think what we should do is I have too many tabs open and the window is tiny. So in here, status equals if status not equal NRF. What is the OK thing? Breakpoint. So if we don't successfully start advertising for some reason, return. I think it's just NRF OK. Adapter. Busy. NRF success. That's what we want. All right, so if the status is not success, then we'll breakpoint. So let's load this new code. Again, so what we're trying to do is we're not even to the BLE part yet. What we're trying to do is just advertise so that we can initiate the connection. Did I miss the talk about what is a raw int? No? I saw that go by, but I didn't really grok the context. One that isn't cooked. All right, let's try it. But first, let's get this in the background. Clear. Start. Continue. Oh, I got really excited for a second there. Huh. Well, it didn't do the breakpoint, so it should have worked. But it didn't show up. The next thing I'm thinking of is that it's possible to... Oh. I mean, it's possible the name is wrong, but... The service it would have would be FEBB. Feed. Nothing. Not clear. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to think about is maybe it's being turned off too quickly. I think it shouldn't say raw int. It should just say int. Hi, Dean. So status must have been okay. Advertising true. Let's just see if we're disabling it again. So this should start it. Trying to think of the techniques I do. Let's see if we get USB. Let me turn USB on. Because if we could get print output, that would really help. Oh, this is probably not what I want. I don't think USB's working. Yeah, see, that's just the Nordic. It's not. Oh, that's bad. Okay, this is good. Let's talk about this. So if you're ever in GDB land, what you want to do is reset into safe mode. It's a great place to set a breakpoint. So if you do on reset, I missed that. So here's what happens. So now I break in. This is what I was doing yesterday. Is if you crash, you get a hard fault handler, and then the hard fault handler calls this reset into safe mode. But other things call reset into safe mode as well. In this case, this is how the code rotted. So I worked on it at the end of 2019, and we kind of haven't used it since over all of 2020. But some of this stuff has changed, and what's changed is that we've added places that do allocations that they didn't previously do allocations, which is a pain, actually. So here what we're seeing is that, so this is, if we start from the top, so here's our main, this is our main loop, right? And our main loop is calling supervisor start Bluetooth, which is something that's been in there but just didn't do anything. Now we're saying, okay, we want to turn Bluetooth on, and we're going to call the background stuff that starts the advertising. The reason the advertising stuff is in the background is that if you start your device up, right, and it's going to advertise for a while, but it's not going to advertise forever. And we actually do want it to advertise forever, but maybe with different advertising policies, right? Because if you have a BLE only CircuitPython device, and it's been running for 2 days, you're going to want to be able to connect to it to fix it, or do something else with it, even if it's been running for 2 days. So what I think Apple recommends is that you, on power up, you advertise really frequently, and then from then on you advertise very once in a while, just so that people can see it. So that's kind of why I have this start advertising happening from this background, the background task thing. So we call supervisor start advertising, and that calls actual start advertising, which this function is now calling this add event handler, and it's doing an allocation, which it shouldn't need to do. So let's take a look at that. What we'll do is we'll replace, so what it's allocating here is it's allocating a struct to keep track of things. And what we can do instead is, I was going to say we can allocate it with the object, but that's actually not a good idea. It's probably okay. I'm thinking about the garbage collector. So like if you have, well, it's an adapter. The adapter's not going anywhere. So it should be fine. So let's take a look at this adapter start advertising, and we're going to have it statically allocate a handler for it. What's \016t CircuitPy? What is that from? What's the context of that, Mark? It's not going to be a static global variable. It's not going to be that bad. So what we can do is, let's look. So here, and in start advertising, oh, number 4 in the backtrace. It's the scan response. So it's printing the scan response as if it were ASCII. So the \016 is octal. So this would be the ADT. Should we talk about BLE advertising? I have it pulled up, I think. And then the \tab is actually the length of, no, this is the length, this is the ADT, and then this is the contents. So if that wasn't a good explanation, which it wasn't. So if you want to see Bluetooth specs, you can go on the bluetooth.com. There's 2 that are really handy. There's this core specification supplement, and then there's the regular one. I think I found by just searching Bluetooth. So there's this core specification 5.2. So that's what I have open here. So these are giant documents. But here's the core spec, and I think it's in version 3, generic access profile, advertising scanner. Yeah, this is what I wanted to show. ADT. Yeah, so here, this is the structure of an advertisement. So there's a total data. It's a AD structure. And then there's a structure 1, structure 2, until you're like filled. An octet is also a byte. It's like 8 bits. So first you have the length. So that's what the 16 in octal is. I don't know what it is in decimal. And then what you have is you have your data after that. And it's usually the AD type. So that's what ADT is. The advertising type, and then the advertising data. And then it says these AD type identifier values are in the assigned numbers. So if you go back to the website and you go under specifications and then assigned numbers, they're here. So there's UUID numbers, there's appearance value numbers, and then there's, I think that they're the generic access profile, abbreviated GAP. Randall says 8 plus 16 is 14. For the octal. So these are the EIR data types, advertising data types, AD type, and the out-of-band data type definitions. So there's flags, there's incomplete list of 16-bit service class UUIDs. So if we go back to my code, we can see how this is structured. So this is just the byte array. We have just like a static advertisement that we're doing. So the 2 is the length, right? And then the 1 is for flags, and then 6 is the flags. Dean says, do you use a Raspberry Pi? And if you do, what is the best OS? I rarely do, but I think Raspbian is kind of the place to start. Okay, so that's 2, 1, and then here we have a length of 3, and it's 2, and then it's BBFE, so that's this incomplete service list. The reason there's a difference between incomplete and complete is like it might ask later. Like it can do a scan response if it wants to get more data. So there's also 8 shortened local name. And then there's, is it FF here? Yeah, there's manufacturer specific data here, which is FF. So if we look here again, we'll see, oh, and it reformatted it on me. I had it all nicely indented. So here's a length and then manufacturer data. And then we actually pack, so this is the Adafruit manufacturer ID. And then we actually use the same format that the advertisement does within our data for the manufacturer data. So we have a length of 10 here. And then we have this ID 4. We use 2 bytes for IDs there. And so this is, so it's 10 total. So we were two for the ID, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for the creation ID. Mark says, I see what you're doing here. Is that whole thing sent as one data packet, or are they chopped up somewhere down the line? These are sent all as one. Okay, the reason I asked was because I was looking into Ubuntu. I would start with Raspbian if you're starting, but if you're not finding what you want with Raspbian, then trying Ubuntu would be fine. On a proper Linux computer, I use Arch. Yeah, so these are not broken up. There's more information about the flags in the supplement. So this is the supplement to the core, and you can see data type definitions for like manufacturer data, 2 or more octets. The first 2 octets contain the company identifier code. Bye, Dean. And then, yeah, we have one of those because Adafruit is part of the Bluetooth SIG. So as long as you satisfy the message format, you can pack your packets. Yeah, I mean, you're limited to it's like 31 bytes or something. Although Bluetooth 5 has extended advertising as well. But like Bluetooth BLE 4 has, I think it's 31 bytes, where it's like you have an initial just broadcast, but then the thing that's doing the scanning can say like, hey, like, can you, yeah, David says line 82 exactly maps to that 16 CircuitPy. Oops. Yeah, so what happens is this advertisement goes out, and then the thing that's scanning actually has the option to initiate a scan response. So it says like, hey, I want to scan you as well, which is a chance to get a second packet. And that's what this second packet is doing. This second packet is giving the full name of the device. And these last 4 I actually need to fill out with the like unique MAC address of it. But yeah, again, it's just length and then the 9 for complete name, and then CircuitPy encoded in ASCII. Love the Factory says, as prototypers, do we have to be careful about what we push over BLE? If prototype evolves to production, different rules for advertisement. So, do you have to be careful about what you push over BLE? So you should think a little bit about encryption. Generally, like what we do at Adafruit, everything's open, so it's not too bad. Like we're not concerned about security, but remember that like when you're advertising, anyone can listen. Like advertisements themselves are not encrypted. So anybody who's happens to be listening could record that data. And I think that's commonly done for like, there are systems for keeping track of like when people are in stores, and they use BLE advertising to kind of keep track of how many people are there and try to keep track of like who's unique as well. If prototype evolves to production, different rules for advertisement. No. BLE, I think, is caught on a lot because they're not super strict about like whether you pass or not. But again, you should do your diligence on whether you're doing everything right. The other thing to think about is like in terms of when you're advertising, like how often you're advertising has a big impact on it has a big impact on battery life. So that's when you're going from prototyping to production, it's probably there's going to be some work as well of like making sure that you're fitting your advertisement or fitting your power requirements as well. Mark says, after you set up a connection and you're in an encrypted channel, are you allowed to send a BLE ADT packet to say that actually I can do these things? I can also do these things. So you don't need, at that point, once you have a connection, you no longer need the advertising stuff anymore. So advertising is all part of GAP. So there's GAP and GAT. And GAP is like is connection initiation and advertising and scanning, whereas GAT is all about like what you do once you're connected. And once you're connected, like there's a whole process, a whole GAT process for discovering all the services. So even if you didn't advertise something, you could still discover services. And then you can also discover like a different name potentially as well. So like there's a whole GAT side as well. So you don't need advertising at that point. Once you're connected, you don't need advertising. But you can say like, you could just say like, I'm going to advertise and here's an incomplete list. The other thing that's kind of interesting that I should point out in terms of what you can advertise is, sorry, been having allergies this week. One of the interesting things that you can advertise as well is there's actually indoor positioning explicitly. Service data is the other way to have data in there. Where is it? Oh, here we go. So here's a solicit. So what you can do is you can advertise not only the devices, not only the services that you provide, but you can also advertise saying like, hey, I'd really like the time. So like your iPhone can say like, oh, here's the time. So what you can do is you can actually broadcast out like, hey, I'd like the time service, please, the current time service. And then once you connect, then you can like get the time from the other device. Mark says, okay, this is sort of like how Apple's devices lie/fib about their BLE profile until you actually connect to them, so you can't be tracked with your BLE device. Yeah, so in terms of tracking and the COVID stuff is really interesting. Good night, Dave. Thanks for hanging out. So the COVID tracking stuff is really interesting because, and the AirTags are kind of in this camp too, is you want enough differences in your tracking so that people can't kind of like assume that it's the same device over time. And I was starting to look at this, so I stubbed it out, and I can't get too into the weeds now. But once I have the BLE service file transfer service working, I will need to go back and think about when we advertise, how we advertise, and how often. So basically it's gonna, I think I've talked about this before, but we can talk about it again. Like there's going to be two cases. There's going to be, I'm a CircuitPython device, but I have USB. So I might just be using it with USB. So let's not kind of be aggressive about doing BLE. And then there's I'm only a BLE device. So what do I do there? And so when these both start up, the very first time you have them, they're not bonded. So bonding is the process of like, once you've connected to something, you exchange encryption things, and you have knowledge about the things that you've seen before. So if you start up and you're not bonded, meaning you've never connected to anything else, there's two options that you want to do. If you're USB, I think you just don't want to advertise at all. You just want to say like, all right, like I'm going to assume you're USB. I'm not going to be aggressive about advertising. And then there will be ways to like trigger it to advertise. So I want to do like a startup window like safe mode. So like after safe mode, it will be blue for a second. And then if you click it there, what it'll do is it'll start up and it will advertise. But on the BLE side, if you start it up, you've never connected to anything, you should advertise publicly that like you're a file transfer service device. And then you'll connect, you'll pair and bond. And then if you start it up a second time anew, you don't start up public. What you do is you start up private, which is you have a different address, but that address that address changes over time. But when you bonded the first time, you exchanged information so that the other device would be able to say like, oh, I actually know that random number is actually like this device I talked to before. So yeah, that way that like the second time you connect and you're broadcasting like, hey, connect to me, it can actually change and like break up the idea of like tracking you with it. So yeah, I'm going to think about that. I stubbed it out, but, and then the other thing in terms of timing is like, right after you start up, you want to advertise a lot, but then if like somebody hasn't connected in that time window, then you kind of back off and take a longer time. Gareth says, how to clear bonding information from a device. So in BLE.io, there's an erase bonding function call that you can call that will delete all of the bonding information. Mark says, I appreciate the answers. I'm sorry I took a little off topic. No, this is fine. This is deep dive on BLE. That's what we're here for. It's making the BLE process way more clear. Yeah, it took me a long time to wrap my head around it, so I'm happy to pass that on. I think I should maybe pick up an Ubertooth One and jump into the weeds. I would recommend just like the Nordic tools are really good. I haven't actually used an Ubertooth One myself, so like on your phone, like you can just do the NRF Connect app, and that's really great. And then the dongle, the NRF dongle here, it's like an NRF52840 dongle. They're like $20 or something, and you can plug them in, and now you have like your desktop doing it as well. Oh, Gareth says, in your usage scenario. So what I think, if you're bonded but you want to rebond, what you would do is you would have that window at startup when you clicked it, and you'd be public again. And that would be true in both cases, like in the case that it's a USB or not USB device. So you plug your device in and go yellow for a second for safe mode, and then go blue for a minute in safe mode. No, blue for a second for bonding mode or whatever, like pairing mode. I forget what they call it. The doc actually says what to general discovery. Oh, discoverable. That's what it is. I forget where I saw it. These docs are giant. Actually, this one's not. This one is 3,256 pages. Alvaro says, can you use advertisements to simulate something like espnow mesh? I would take a look at what BLE mesh is doing. But yeah, generally, yes. And I think one of the good things, and probably still underrated things that came out of me looking at BLE in 2019 was the like the BLE broadcast net that I did. It's not mesh, so like messages don't get retransmitted by nodes. But yeah, that's there. I should say there was an old PR open that I actually finished, which is adding transmit power to advertisements as well. So you can boost the power just a smidge more than what it is now, if you are doing some sort of mesh sort of thing too. Beata says, I'm getting a 52840 here soon. Awesome. Yeah, I like that. Ron says, can I watch this offline? BLE understanding is critical for me on the NRF52. You can totally watch it on YouTube as well. I see you're on LinkedIn. YouTube.com/Adafruit. And the recording will be under there. If you go to videos, you'll see it. Or you can go to playlists, created playlists, and then deep dive with Scott. And you'll see all of the older stuff too. But this is one of the first times I've gone into deep BLE stuff on the deep dive, I think. Because I did Wi-Fi, I did ESP32, and then we did RP2040 and stuff. But I'm happy to answer questions here, and I would recommend joining the Discord server as well, which is the URL adafru.it/discord. Okay. All right, we gave up on Android mirroring for now. So we still don't know why it didn't work. And for some reason, USB is not working as well. Oh, wait, we do know why it didn't work. We haven't fixed this. Love the Factory says, can we look forward to BLE stuff to and from CircuitPython in Windows or just mobile phones? I don't think that Adafruit is going to sponsor that. I wouldn't be surprised if we did web Bluetooth as a way, and that would work on Windows and non-Windows. But a Windows native thing, I think somebody else would have to do. But I think like Adafruit development will be focused on mobile to start. Because those are the people that don't have access to our stuff now. But yeah, I think it's a public protocol. It's I hope well documented. Love the Factory says CircuitPython. Yes, already does that. So if you look in the BLE file transfer repo now, there in examples, I'll just pull it up. Whoop. In examples. In here. So here, there's two examples. There's this simple test. So this is the client code. And then there's also the stub server code. So you can do this already between CircuitPython devices. Yeah, and if anybody wants to help take time codes synced to YouTube, there's a doc there that David DCD has been helping out, but they have to leave a little early. So if anybody wants to just drop in there, I suspect we'll just talk BLE the rest of the time, but if folks want to help out with that, that would be awesome. And David links to their code to listen for COVID app advertisements. Gareth says, will you put in an RFC for it? Is there an official body I should send it to? I would love comments on it, but I think at this point it's kind of like good enough. There's a version number, so we can always re-up the version number later and tweak it. Like TAC had some ideas about like recursive delete and move and copy sorts of stuff. So like maybe that will become in a V2, but I really want to get V1 out the door. Like as we're seeing here, like this code doesn't work anymore because we didn't have it active and in using it actively. Like I was thinking about this, like this is bit rot, and it's kind of the term for it. It's like code that used to work that doesn't work anymore, but the code's still the same. It's just like the code around it changed, causing it to stop. And so it's really important to not get like the focus on this BLE work needs getting it active and actively used so that it doesn't regress, it doesn't rot. So like we'll do potentially a V2 if we think there's stuff worthwhile, but like how do I know what the correct time for the time codes is? I think you just see it on YouTube. Like I think does YouTube tell you a time? Sorry, I just go based on YouTube because that's the only place that the notes end up. And if there are any that you're uncertain about, I can always check. But yeah, they're not going to be relative to real time. They're going to be relative to when the video started. Yeah, we just passed 1.5 hours. If you hover at the beginning of the time bar, it shows the time. That's what Doctor says. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. All right. So yeah, we already have CircuitPython to CircuitPython example code. So like what we should be able to do is if I get the real server running, which would replace this file, I should be able to run this simple test. Should be able to run this simple test code that's like write a file, read it back, make a directory, list the directory. Like I should be able to run this against a real device as well, which will be really handy for testing. It's all good, Gareth. It's a good thing. Yeah, so time codes, if you have like, oh, we're changing subjects sorts of stuff, that those can go in the note stock, and they end up in the YouTube description, which allows you to see it, like it chunks the bar at the bottom after the fact. It allows you to skip around, which is really nice. Okay, so we had this problem that the advertising code is trying to do an allocation for the handler. So what we have is that this is specific for the NRF. So this is part of the problem, like in terms of like what are we going to support with this, is like there's some gonna be some like bad abstractions or lack of abstractions we might have to make better to support other BLE later on. Like I just added that thing that like checked an NRF return code, for example. When I'm in supervisor code, theoretically supervisor should know about what BLE implementation is dealing with. So what we need to do is we need to fix just something in the NRF stuff. So it has this BLE DRV, which is I think BLE driver, add event handler. So if we look in NRF Bluetooth, there's this BLE dvorak.c, and it handles this, add this event handler entry, and it does some like, it's a linked list, so it connects it up. But you can also, this is handler entry. So this version allows you to provide it so it doesn't do an allocation. Whereas if you don't provide it, it does this mnewll, which is a new allocation of a long-lived object, which is a pain. And so we're getting here, and this is what we're failing. This is the allocation that we're failing to do. And what this is doing is there's actually like an interrupt that we get in for every event from the soft device. And we do some flash stuff, but then we also do like we loop over the linked list and call each function in it. It's a way for us to kind of like give BLE events out to different things that care about different events. So in this case, this advertising stuff, we'll take a look at it here. So it's in Adapter, start advertising, and it okay, so this here doesn't have the underscore. So this is the version that when you call BLEIO start at adapter start advertising, this is what gets called. But then it calls out to this underscore version, which is like the internal API that should be allocation free, but it's not. So if we go and we take a look at that, we can see it's setting up some stuff, and then it's doing this add event handler, and this is what's doing the allocation. And then it's doing it on this advertising on BLE event. So this is what's getting called, and it's just keeping track of when the advertising is finished, so that we can say that the advertising's done. So what we want to do is we want to say we want to do the entry version, and let's actually, I think we do need a second one. But what we can do is we can put it on the self object. Mark says, why is allocation free important? Cost too much CPU time and desyncs the protocol? No. So the problem is that these allocations are allocations onto the Python heap. And we're actually running all this code. We're starting up BLE before Python is going. And so we need a way, well, like we can't allocate because the heap for Python is not there yet. And we also need to make sure that we also may want these objects to live across multiple Python heaps, for example. So the easiest way to do it is like so every object is actually a struct, right? So this is the struct for the adapter. And then if we look, where is it? There's just like one adapter that's like statically allocated that always exists. I don't know where it is. I think it might actually be in shared bindings. Anyway, so what we can do here is we can say, I already did this for one. I already had to do this once. I think this is the connection. So I wonder if we're going to need it for other stuff too. So I'm just going to say connection handler entry and shared handler entry. Because we should just see. So add handler, add event handler. So here on BLE event, so when we get a new connection, we actually create connection objects. And copy. Yeah, we'll see. Handler entry. Right, so in set enabled, this is the one I fixed yesterday. So that's the connection handler entry. So that is this adapter on BLE event function, which is the one that's keeping track of connected and disconnected. And I don't know why advertising set terminated is there. Like this theoretically should be handled by the other one. So where's the... Right, so here's scan. So scan is going to do an allocation, but we're probably okay because we know we're not going to scan. And then connect, like we're not going to be doing connect either. So I'm going to cheat it. So there's this BLE set terminated. And then there's this stop advertising call, which should, you would think, set it to null. I don't know why that's there. Should we see if we break anything? It should be covered. All right, we're just going to delete that. But then what we need to do is in start advertising state handler. Let's do let's just call it advertising event handler, and we'll change it. All right, let's see how far we get. Reload debug, which will rebuild and tell us that we named it wrong. save the file? No, I didn't. Gotta save the file. And it still didn't work. Needs a ampersand. Gotta give it a pointer to it. Doctor says, I wonder how many weeks I have to join before I start understanding most of what the heck is going on. Well, we're definitely, like, there's a reason it's called Deep Dive. Like, I've been programming for, like, 20 years. And I went to school for it. And I worked in industry since 2009. I've been programming professionally for 12 years. It takes a long time. And I think if you're just hanging out and not getting most of it, you're actually getting more than you think. And the next time you see it, you'll start from where you left off. So it's totally okay not to understand it all. Totally okay. And if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. But like, this is complex stuff. Not simple. So we're going to continue and we're going to see what happens. And it looks like it's didn't crash, so let's do a scan. If we're still going. My TV showed up. Or no, that's not. No, do I have a Samsung? No, I have an LG. That's not my TV. Somebody else's TV is saying that it's there. Nerodog says the deep in deep dive stands for deep. Doctor says I've been doing programming in general over the last 20 plus years, just never got to the professional level and haven't done any Python before a couple weeks ago. Well, Python's awesome. And BLE is complicated too if you haven't done BLE. Side note, Jupyter Notebook now handles collab editing. Well, dang it. It didn't show up. Let's see where we are. Backtrace. Well, we didn't crash. So let's reset and are we still? Oh, we're on data still. So did our USB show up? No. Why isn't USB working? That's a bummer. That can help a lot if USB works. I wonder if I just let's not use J-Link. Let's just try it. I'm replugging it in. Ah, I heard it on my headphones. All right. Screen. I would like to get this going. That would be nice. Oh, it did respond. I don't even know what code's on here. It shouldn't matter, right? Like, I'm working in the core. I have a NeoPixel MPY on it. It's some NeoPixel stuff. Okay, well, that's good news. So what I want to do now is I'm going to eject. And I want to get, oh, yeah, the dead beef. Evander says, is Sublime an intentional choice or rather a habit? I went from Kate to Sea Lion and I think it's helped a bit, but I don't have long experience with it. Have you taken a look at more professional IDEs? I used Kate back in the day and I definitely tend to like that style of like primarily just a text editor with syntax highlighting. I generally don't like more professional IDEs. I find them slow and annoying, and VS Code is the one I tried most recently, and I disliked how noisy it was in the sense of it was always popping stuff up. It really bothered me. And then like what you get is like all this background pre-processing of stuff, which is supposed to help with autocomplete, but it's like it also just spins everything up, and I like my tools to work across languages and stuff, and so I've never worked so deep into a single language that it's really helped me. So I think there's a place for IDEs, but generally I've just not found it. Yeah, the object stuff is a Discord bug. Corky says, I watch your deep dives to feed my unconscious. Yeah, I totally get that. I love watching stuff to let my brain just like simmer on it in the background. I think that's really cool. But yeah, I'm really happy with Sublime Text. It's very fast. So if you're not super into Sea Lion, you should give Sublime Text. It's gonna feel like Kate, I think largely, but I've been pretty happy with Sublime Text. I was on Mac for a while, which doesn't have Kate, I don't think so. The Discord thing hasn't worked for weeks now. I was thinking maybe I should come up with a different way to do it. But that's for another day. I was going to turn on the BLE debugging. So let's figure out what the CircuitPy Verbose BLE is what I want. And let's leave this. And yeah, we're dead beef now. CircuitPy, I thought it was. It's in H files, so I'm just going to put it in npconfig port H. Let's just put it next to the BLE stuff. I don't know. I'll rip it out later. Let's turn on Verbose BLE. Let's see. Like this will give us some debugging info. So one of the challenges with debugging BLE is that it's timing sensitive, and so using a debugger to figure out, oh, I got here is like not great because that can cause basically all the BLE stuff going forwards to not work. And so I actually find printf debugging to generally be better because it doesn't stop things. It just tells me what's going on. So, okay, we made that. Let's make clean. And we don't actually need to do a debug build anymore if we're not using the debugger. Oh, it's redefined. Oh, okay. We'll change it there instead. CircuitPy, npconfig, verbose. Like, we'll be able to see these in the diffs. Source. I don't know why that's in my history. I should figure out how to delete stuff from my history. That never worked. David says, oh, funny, it looks so much like Objective-C. I use VS Code. It's 2020's response to Clippy. Mark says, I loved Sublime Text. I just upgraded to 4. It's so fast compared to other editors while being so easy to type around, and their default keyboard shortcuts also just work. I think it's actually JavaScript under the hood for what they are using, their Discord bot. I would actually love to fix that if somebody could point me to where the code was. Foamy Guy says, I've gone to opening a browser window with the Discord web app and feeding that into OBS instead of that feed overlay specific thing. Yeah, I could do that. NWK says, Spider is a great IDE for Python, specifically if you're using IPython, SciPy, NumPy, or you want to set breakpoints for debugging. So that's a good point. I never appreciated Conda until I started doing some Pandas stuff for the fiber deserts things. Like, I didn't understand that Conda built all the C-based modules based on the same version, so you don't have conflicts. I think that's really neat. Probe effect is when a debugger causes different behavior than when it wasn't there. Yeah. Okay. We made it. And now this is where when people are like, oh, I gotta have fancy things. fancy debugger people will be like, what are you doing? I'm double tapping the feather and I'm gonna drag it over using U of 2. Like, I'm always amazed that programmers are like super concerned about how fast they can input text into the thing. It's like, that has never been my bottleneck. Like, I've made it this far and I do printf debugging. I'm not the fastest keyboardist. And I use a mouse and stuff. Like, hi, Camus. I hope I said that right. Camus? All right, so I just dragged it over. I can actually hear like the USB. Oh, I did screen. That's not right. TO is the best. So we turned on Verbose BLE, but I don't know what it should print. Fetty2 says, have you ever tried a weird keyboard layout like dvorak? I spent 2 hours with dvorak and then I realized that it's not a good idea. I switched actually to Colmac a couple of years ago now, and I highly recommend it. Colmac is much more modern. It was designed for people that are coming from QWERTY. And it's and like Mac has it in the drop down, so you could just select it. It's like pretty easy to switch. Okay, so I'm gonna hit reset and see if we can't capture any sort of BLE prints. I have a feeling we might just be turning it off. That might be our problem. So no BLE prints by the time USB. So we're actually starting, I think we're starting it up early. So I'm going to actually I'm going to cheat and see if my problem is that we're turning it off. And the way I'm going to do that is, well, first I want to just make sure there's a print here. So we should be seeing these BLE events. So let me just go into Adapter, and there's this set enable, and there's this soft device disable. I just want it to, like, don't turn it off. Don't turn it off if we're not going to. So I just want to try that. And I think we're about out of time. Any final questions? Please get those in the chat and I'll answer them. But doctor, you're falling for it. Typing speed really doesn't matter that much. Considering the number of machines I use, the fact that I have to share systems with folks at times and touch other folks' system, I didn't want to go from... 100 words per on QWERTY to lower speed on both. So when I type QWERTY, I stare at my hands now. But okay, let's drag it over. Mark says, I'm a printf debugger and console log in JavaScript. It's also like the easiest tool for the job, and every language comes with their own at no additional costs. Yes, 100%. David says, I switched to dvorak in the 90s. I thought about switching to Comac now and then, but found it not compelling enough over dvorak. When I did that switch, I finally stopped looking at my hands. That's the other thing. Like I chat with my parents every week, and they actually noticed that I no longer had to look at my hands to type. Like I do occasionally, and I definitely do if I'm doing QWERTY. But like, we're still not getting any error messages, which is weird. Let's just try the scan one more time. Oh, you know, let me clear. Come on. Nothing. See my headphones. I mean, it's weird that it's not printing anything. How do I ban? So many spammers. Pre-baked Beats said, I get a headache just thinking about switching from QWERTY. So the nice thing about Comac is there's only one letter that's on the different hand. Is there a BLE version of a TV Be Gone? I don't know. Doctor says, wait, did you look at your hands before you switched? Yes, kind of. Not like a lot, but like I would occasionally. Yeah, sorry, if you don't want to switch, don't switch, but like, I found once I switched to Comac, there was a lot more words I could type with home row, and I think that's really cool. So, it definitely took me like a few months to switch, but like, I've struggled with my hands being unhappy, and my right hand this week has been not super happy with me because I've been at the computer a lot. So, I don't know, like, you definitely will take a hit, but I think it feels pretty good. When you like, it clicked for me, and I was like, okay, I get why this is actually better. Like, there's so much more you can type with the home row. So, all right, let me just read back last bit. How do you use a laptop? They're all going to be QWERTY. They're labeled QWERTY. You don't have to read the labels. If I have to type something when I'm like at the place typing something, I have to look at my hands to do it, but that's fine. Yeah, Gordy says, I never learned to touch type QWERTY. I finally decided to learn to touch type and decided dvorak would be best. Now every time I have to use anybody else's computer, it's back to hunt and peck. Yep, that's how I am too. Dishipa says, what helped me with touch typing was a split ortho keyboard. Yeah, I have mostly blank. My keyboard's actually quite funny. I have like some blank keys and I have some... Okay, don't mind the cat hair. I actually have like some blank keys, some labeled keys. I left the labels on the keys that are in the same spot, and I put blanks where it's different. All right, let's get out of here. That's a bummer I didn't get it working. That's life. That's what Monday is for. Maybe I'll think of another thing to try. It's weird that it's not printing out any error messages for it. That makes me suspicious. So, David says, I definitely agree that switching from QWERTY is recommended, generally speaking. If I was switching now, I'd probably use Colmac, but I'm happy with dvorak too. Yeah, see, dvorak was created in like the 1800s, and it was created as a system for people who have never learned to type, whereas Colmac was created in the 2000s, and Colmac was designed for people coming from QWERTY, so like they minimized switching stuff. So I'm happy with it. I'd recommend Colmac to folks that want to do it, want to give it a try. Yeah, maybe it's just broken. All right. Thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure. Let me do the wrap up. This has been another deep dive. Spook's back in his bed because I froze him out with the window open, and the sun has gone away. I hope the BLE advertising stuff was interesting. I think advertising is actually quite powerful, and people are kind of like, even Linux is kind of like tuned to just like, oh, it only is useful for discovering things that you want to do more advanced stuff in. But advertising itself is actually quite powerful, I think. So that's the first step to getting native BLE workflow in CircuitPython. Hopefully, I was down a little bit on Tuesday, and Tuesdays are usually one focus day. So hopefully next week. This time next week, I'll have a lot more to report, and maybe we're going to be implementing some of the protocol, which would be really cool. That would be really neat. If you want to support me, support Adafruit by going to adafruit.com, purchasing something there. If you don't have any NRF52840 boards, I would recommend picking one up. The Circuit Playground Bluefruit is going to be kind of the flagship of this stuff. I think it'd be really cool. So if you don't have any of those and you want to support us, I'd suggest that. If you want to chat with me and a bunch of others, check the Adafruit Discord server by going to the URL adafru.it/discord. If you want to watch this after the fact, there will be notes in the description. Thank you, Muhammad. Thank you, Minnesota Mentat. Thank you, Gordy, Deshipu, Mark, and everyone. The NRF51 is too old and not enough RAM, so I would not recommend that. Yeah, next week's on Friday, I think. An NRF52811. That's probably, the 840 is great because it's got a lot of RAM. Make sure that you have enough RAM. Doctor says, how did you get the name Tannewt? I think in like 1999 I randomly generated it. The name I had previously, I wanted to be I Can't Wait, which I still kind of wish I did, but I think the problem is like somebody on Twitter already had it. So I wanted something that was unique, and I thought the idea of a newt tanning was a little weird. So it was like randomly generated by something, and it was unique, and I kind of don't conflict with anybody else. So yeah, a tan space newt. I got rid of the underscore pretty quickly. I think that was like 1999 or something. Anyway, that's it. I'll pet the cat and we'll get out of here. Thank you all. We'll talk to you on the Discords. And see you next week. Where's my cat cam? Here. Spook? You asleep? No? Did I wake you up? You know we gotta end this stream by petting you. You need your nails clipped too, dude. Should we close the window? Can't say no to chin scratches. Yeah. Good kitty. All right, have a good one, everyone.